So many of our leaders have done that, where you see what is meant for the general populace, they will now do it to look as if it is now their own private businesses. So indirectly, if the normal effort that should be put in to make Operation Feed the Nation fail, who failed to implement it? Those in government. And why? Because monies appropriated to make Operation Feed the Nation successful. And what are these monies would have been meant for? For procurement of pesticides, tractor, training of farmers, rural people, extension workers going to train people. This is the amount of fertilizer to apply to maize. And in this situation, there will be no need for Nigerians to start importing maize, to start importing rice and other food produce that we have today. So these are some of the reasons, these are some of the programs, government experiences that her successive government has put in place. But at the end of the day, almost all of these rural developmental programs failed to actualize because of what? So many factors that we will be looking at when we are discussing the challenges towards these government programs. What are the challenges that made them to fail? We will be discussing that. Number 3 point is the Agricultural Development Project, ADP. Agricultural Development Project, the ADP. This ADP commenced in Nigeria in 1975. It commenced in Nigeria in 1975, and it is what? Part of the World Bank and the federal government as well as state government jointly own the Agricultural Developmental Project. And the ultimate objective of ADP was to raise the productivity, increase farm output, increase income and standard of living of the rural people to make life more meaningful for them. The emphasis on ADP was what? To promote small-scale autonomous projects, to create small-scale autonomous projects towards agriculture using cooperative what? Approaches in order to tackle many of the what? Agricultural problems that affect the rural people. It includes what? Production, it includes marketing, it includes infrastructure, it includes training and retraining. The major point here is that the aim of the Agricultural Developmental Program or project, as sponsored by World Bank assisted project, as well as what? The state government and federal government, was to ensure that there is what? Improve in the production of food. There is improve in marketing of agricultural produce. There is improve in infrastructural facilities. There is improve in training and retraining of what? Farmers and other agricultural stakeholders. But the problem with this agricultural developmental program is that it is simply they adopted the big push approach that we discussed under the approaches. They adopted the big push approach. And as such, big push approach, from the word big, there is involvement of what? Heavy capital. And because, you know, the normal thing with our society, corruption and other primordial sentiment did not allow for what? Federal government and other organizations to adopt this agricultural developmental project. Mind you, we must not lose the fact that this is a project that is introduced by the World Bank. By the World Bank. World Bank came to meet Nigeria in our quest Can you hear me, class? There was a call that obstructed my lecture.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So the reason for this failure of this agricultural developmental project was that it is a World Bank project, and you know World Bank cannot just bring up a project without what? Conditionalities. How can our agricultural produce increase in terms of what? Production, without we making use of what? Mechanization, tractors, harvesters. How can agricultural produce of most rural areas increase without making use of pesticides and fertilizer? In other words, without making use of what? Genetically modified ingredients. And all of this you cannot produce in this country. It has to be imported into the country and for us to utilize them. So for you to import pesticide, tractors, and other agricultural mechanization, it involves what? Money. And sometimes, in some cases, when these monies were allocated to bring them down, those at the helms of affairs simply loot these funds. And even when these projects come down on board, what happens at the end of the day is that because we don't have people who are expertise in them, it is meant once they break down, there is no means of fixing them because you will have to bring people again from outside the shores of this country in order to fix them. And also, that heavy capitalization. Nigerian budget cannot be centered just towards agriculture. And even the little that is appropriated for this agricultural developmental project was siphoned at some point in time. So this is also part of the reason why the agricultural developmental project failed. And not just because of that, because they also make use of what? Big push approaches, whereby the ideas are not coming from the rural area. The ideas are simply generated from the top and it is pushed down to the people in the rural area. Number 4, another project that government had experience on is the River Basin Development Authority. The River Basin Development Authority, if you look at the dates I'll be calling on this project, you will realize that they lap with each other. Some have started because if there is no River Basin Development Authority, you cannot therefore be talking about what? Agricultural developmental project. How can you improve food production Firstly, the River Basin Development Authority, RBDA, was first launched in 1962. 1962, just 2 years after Nigeria's independence. But by 1976, it was expanded. And again, in 1983, it was also further expanded. You will agree with me why it was expanded in 1976. That was because in 1975, the Agricultural Developmental Project was launched by World Bank and Nigeria federal and other state government. So it has to be expanded. And what is this River Basin Development Authority all about? The aim of the authority was to make the nation self-sufficient in food production and to uplift the socio-economic standard of the rural dwellers. Part of the agreement in the third National Development Plan is that huge sums of money was used or earmarked to develop main rivers of the country. Once these rivers are developed upon and expanded, then what happened? It will benefit agriculture and rural development will take effect. The major objective of this Rural Development Authority at the end of the day, just like other programs, was also not achieved. This is because The philosophy of trickling down approach was not adopted, and it is a serious issue wherever development of rural areas were expected to take effect. And part of the major objective of this Rural Developmental Authority was to, one, undertake a comprehensive development, of both our surface waters and underground water resources for multipurpose use. Apart from just using it for what? Agriculture. What about what? The one for drinking. So that's one of the objectives of the second objective of the River Basin Development Authority was also to undertake a scheme for the control of flooding and erosion and for watershed management. But today, we expect NIMET and other sister agencies or climate agencies, NEMA, are beginning to give warnings again, because we are in the rainy season, of an impending river or flooding that might take place. But imagine if this River Basin Development Authority, since its inception and expansion year in, year out, from 60s to 80s to 70s to 80s, if the work was actually done the way it should be done, we would not today still be talking about what? Flooding in Nigeria as a society. But at the end of the day, it is as a result of the failures of this River Basin Development Authority to what? Actualize their purpose that led to the current floodings that we are experiencing in Nigeria. Another major objective of the River Basin Development Authority is to construct, not just construct, and maintain dams, wells, boreholes, irrigations, and drainage system. All of this has failed. If the society had a good drainage system in operation, we will not again be talking about flooding year in, year out during the raining period. And also, the last objective of the River Basin Development Authority was also to provide water from reservoir and lakes for irrigation purposes, so that farmers can make use of what? Or we will have an all year round food production. These are some of the, you can see the major objective. Like we always say, in Nigeria, our policies are always good, but implementation becomes a challenge for us. These are some of the major objectives of the River Basin Development Authority. But at the end of the day, what happened? Instead of concentrating on these rivers, dams, construction of dams and what have you, reservoirs, lakes, dikes, the attention of the River Basin Development Authority changes. They diverted their attention into traditional roles to that of what? Food production. They now started concentrating on food production instead of concentrating on water. And also, the increasing cost of running all these dams, dikes, and river, and this is the reason why the program on its own also failed to actualize its objective. I'll take you with the fifth one. Let me rush so that I can finish this topic today if possible. The fifth experience or project that government had experience in is the Green Revolution. Green Revolution. What is the Green Revolution? It is a cash program that was launched in 1980 by Alhaji Shehu Shagari's administration. And what is the aim? It is aimed at what? Boosting food production in a bid to provide food to every Nigerian. Green revolution. Let's go green. Oh yeah, let's provide our food to boost agricultural production. This is what the then Shehu Shagari administration saw, and this is why it was launched. The major objectives of this green revolution, importantly, are two. One, to make the country self-sufficient in food production within 5 years. Mind you, this project was launched in 1980. So if it was adequately implemented by the government, by 1995, Nigeria should have been self-sufficient in terms of food production. And secondly, to return the country to its preeminent crop production stage within 7 states. Before colonialism, Nigeria is producing food crops, most especially subsistence food crops. But it was colonialism that turned our production from that of what? Food to that of what? Cash crops. So these are the two major objectives of what? The Green Revolution, as launched in 1980 by Shehu Shagari's administration. But unfortunately, this Green Revolution also failed because the same government that instituted the Green Revolution, the same government, the same Shehu Shagari government that instituted this Green Revolution with the aim of making Nigeria self-sufficient in terms of food production by nineteen for that matter. So again, money for people to go and import rice from America and other America and India. It implies that we are not ready for such revolution to take place, quote and unquote, in our agricultural sectors. Also, the farmers that constitute the major bulk of the producers of this product, who automatically would have had their economic and social standard improved, were not consulted. And it is very clear that there was no mention of how to channel the money back from the rural areas to develop the rural areas. Because if food production takes place in the rural areas, it is expected that if government benefit from selling those food produce, you should be able to give those rural areas some forms of what? Infrastructural development to compensate them for producing this food and helping the nation boost its revenue. But such plans were not there, and it also implies why the Green Revolution as a program failed to actualize its objective. The next facilitator is online already. We have just one or two more to go. God's willing,
Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. Nice to meet you guys once again.
Your own sister.
Same here.
Okay, so in our last study section, we looked at the meaning of civil military relationship, where we affirmed that it has to do with interaction that goes on between the armed forces of a state and, of course, the other sectors of society or the civilian authority. In other words, we say that civil military relationship has to do with the complex interaction actually, and dynamics that goes on between the armed forces and then the civilian authority. We cited examples saying that that the manner in which if you have an advanced armed forces, it also shows that the society is developed. And if you want to know how a society is civil or authoritarian in nature, you can use the military to do an X-ray to know whether a society can claim to be democratic or civil in its or dealings. You can use the military to do that X-ray. I also say that it's pertinent to understand again that when you have a strong military force, that sometimes it also poses a danger for the civilian authority to control a strong military force. So, and we also discuss some of the factors that also influence military relationship. In other words, factors that could tell the nature of a civil military relation in a given country or state. These factors will then make it or mar it. This factor can describe a cordial or explain whether the military relationship, the civil military relationship in a country can be described to be cordial, violent, cooperative or uncooperative, conflictual, and what have you. We identify history and culture. To be specific, in our own case, we talk about the history of colonialism and military rule, as one of the factors that influence our military heritage. We also talk about political stability, leadership and governance, professionalism and ethical standards, civil society and public opinion, where we made reference to issues of media, particularly the social media now, as factors that could make or mar a kind of military relationship. We concluded that last time that these factors are interrelated and interwoven. In other words, they are interconnected. They are not mutually exclusive of each other. That they influence each other. In other words, you cannot really separate them. They are interrelated and then interwoven. Basically, today we're going to look at the issues about civilian control of the military. I think we are together.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So we want to look at civilian control of the military. Civilian control of the military. So the civilian control of the military basically has to do with the principle and ethos that the military should be subject to the authority and control of civilian leadership. Civilian control of the military entails that I'm talking about the principle or ethics or ethos that the military or ideology that the military should be under the authority and control of a civilian leadership. Of course, usually in the modern times, as the case may be, it is exercised by the government elected representative. It is a fundamental principle in democratic governance. And of course, it is aimed at ensuring that the military remain subordinate to the civilian authority. Now, the thing is this: even in states that didn't even practice, democratic governance, a state that cannot pride itself to be democratic in nature, if you know what democracy is all about, still have, argument that look, that the military should be under the political control. Military should be under what? Democrat shouldn't just be should be under civilian control. Now, for instance, if you can look at the case of Chairman Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao of the People Republic of China. In his famous quote, he once said that our principle is that party commands the gun, and the gun must never be allowed to command the party. Now, this reflects the primacy of the Chinese Communist Party over the Liberation Army. In those days, it was the Chairman Mao that led a lot of the Liberation Army through the Communist Party in China to establish a communist state for them. But he was also emphasizing the need that look, that the People Liberation Army must not be allowed to control the Communist Party. In other words, the party should command the gun, and the gun must never be allowed to command the party. In other words, the political leaders should be the one that determine the direction of the military, to control the military, and not the other way around. I think last time I was even trying to cite example that if you recall in our pre-colonial society, where the Aroka Konfa, who is regarded as the army general in the Yoruba Asian societies, he was not allowed to live in the territory where the Oba stays. He was not allowed to live at the domicile of the city. He stays at the outskirts of the city. What's the implication of that? Because he was a great warrior who is influential and who has people or the youth or the army under his control, which means his presence in the city where the king or the Alafin or the Oba, as the case may be in that time, his domicile could also be challenging to his authority. So the idea is this: the point being made is that from time immemorial, even beyond the fact that we now live in an era of democratic, ideas and principles, it has always been the idea that the military should be under the control of the civilian government or the civilian authority, as the case may be. And we have cited examples that even beyond the democratic, let more of land that we now live in a democratic society, or rather where the world, everybody is tilting their attention towards or democratic ideas, societies of the world. So the idea of civilian control of the military entails that the military should be subject to civilian control. I think we're together.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So we can quickly advance other reasons or reasons that have been advanced for civilian control of the military. There are several reasons. One of them obviously is for democracy's sake or civilian supremacy, or however you put it. So, for democracy's sake, civilians should control the military. States should be guided by the will of the people, as expressed by their political representative. So, for instance, going to war is a serious matter that has, major impact on the citizens, and therefore it shouldn't be left in the hands of the few general or the hands of the few military men. So, because of the state should be guided, countries should be guided by the will of the people, as expressed, of course, by their political representatives, who they have been elected to represent their will. So, the idea that the principle of the state should be guided by the will of the people makes it, advantageous or reasonable enough that civilians should control the military and not the other way around. Because, again, the military is just a specialized government agency which is supposed to implement rather than formulate policies that require use of certain types of physical force. So when the point of civilian control is to make the security subordinate to the larger purpose of a nation, to make the state or the nation or to make the security the point is to make the security agents rather, or to be specific, the military, to be subordinate to the larger purpose of the nation, because the purpose of the nation goes beyond warfarism. It goes beyond protection of just the territorial integrity, which is basically one major function of the military. And again, you should also understand that why we should allow, or for the same reason, which is for democracy's sake, is that the military is highly authoritative and hierarchical in nature. If you can recall, in our characteristics of the military, we talked about the fact that the military is a hierarchical. One of the features is that it has a hierarchical structure and highly authoritative. It operates on chains and command. So if it's an authoritative institution, if it's an authoritative organization within the general setting of society, it means really it will not allow discussion, and it also means it will not allow dissenting voices, because you expect to obey the last command. And the implication is this: if you allow the military to take over or control the state, it means there won't be room for what? Dissenting voices. There won't be room for divergent opinions. So for this sake of democracy, for the state, since it was created by or guided by the will of the people, civilian authority ideally should be allowed to control the military. All right. Another reason we can also think of is because to avoid authoritarianism. So avoidance of authoritarianism is also a reason why civilian authority are allowed to control the military. So historically, we have seen society who have left their military unchecked. Society with unchecked military power have always been prone to military coups and establishment of what? Authoritarian regimes. So where you have had military power becoming unchecked, they tend to have what? Authoritarian regimes. So our example now, when the military took over power in 66, we can see the number of years it took us to come back to civilian regime. Even the times we came back in 79, it's just only 4 years they spent in the barrack and they came back. So for avoidance of authoritarianism, civilian control should be ensured so that the military does not become separate, the military does not become accountable, and then for undermine democratic institutions. So another one or reasons is one, protection of civil liberty. Protection of civil liberty. I think we are together.
Yes, sir, we are.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The military primary function only is to defend the nation, to defend the states, primarily against external and internal aggression. But when its power can also be misused, their powers can also be misused to suppress civil liberties and human rights. So when there's a civilian control, it ensures that the military will operate within the legal and ethical boundaries, protecting rights of individuals and preventing power abuse. Now, unfortunately, we can cite instances of where military powers or military, rather than protecting the nation against external aggression, are used, to suppress civil liberties and human rights, which is quite unfortunate. Today in Nigeria, you cannot express your rights against a military person because you're scared of him, abusing your human rights and all that. We have seen cases even in some of these our comedy jingles on social media and like where if somebody who is a military personnel has offended you, you cannot retaliate. So the military are not supposed to be used to suppress civil liberty, and that is why they must be ensured to be controlled by civilian authorities. In ancient pattern, those of you that did history of education on a level, you must have known about how education started. Like in ancient pattern, the history of boarding school started in ancient pattern. But one of the remarkable features of them is the fact that when you get to that certain age to go to a boarding school, where the state will train you, not just they train you militarily, because that's what Spartan does. They train you to become a military person from day one, because they were surrounded by enemies. So every citizen Spartan are soldier by default. So by the time you come back from that school after your successful training, the hallmark of a real Spartan and disciplinary is that when you come to the city, you walk in a disciplined manner, not showing the evidence that you can beat everybody, but they have power to kill and all that. You see them, they walk to show discipline. Those days when in ancient Spartans. So I think our military personnel, they rather, instead of seeing themselves as symbol of discipline that they have been trained to maintain, they rather want to become masters of the law, which is quite unfortunate. So the idea for protection of civil liberty is the idea for civilian control of the military is to ensure protection of civil liberty. All right, and then you can talk about issues of policy and strategic decision making. Policy and strategic decision making. Policy and strategic decision making. Civilian obviously are the policy makers. They are the ones responsible for making decisions on issues of national security, foreign policies, and where there may be need for military intervention. So, and they consider various factors before taking decisions, including issues of diplomatic issues, economic issues, humanitarian concerns, to determine the appropriate use of military force. So when there is a civilian control, it ensures that these decisions align with broader societal interests and the overall objective of the nation. If this policy and strategic decisions are left in the hands of the military, most often times it's going to be one-way-sided. Let's just go to war and finish them, seeing that undermining, and that's how a typical military person behaves normally. That's how they behave normally. So allow for civilian control of the military, allow the policy makers, the political leaders, the civilian authority to explore options while taking decisions. For instance, should we go to war? Because of they are small country, why would they be challenging us? We have to explore other options in terms of allocation of resources as well. So Is the war worth it? Like the way a lot of Republicans are always criticizing the Democrat now currently, that a lot of wars the American has gone to are needless. They are needless because such fund could have been directed in developing other infrastructures, decaying infrastructures, as put forward by them. These are some of the arguments that are being raised by Republicans, in particular, Donald Trump. So the idea is that it will allow the civilian leaders, to explore options in taking decisions. Then, another one you can talk about is budgetary oversight, which are also very similar to this issue of policy and decision taking. Because when civilian control the military, it allows for democratic oversight of the military. It allows them to see how military spending is going on. It ensures that defense resources, that is, resources allocated to defense, money that are allocated to security, are allocated in line with the nation priorities. So you can see today a lot of people are arguing that, look, a lot of money are put forward into what? Security, in the fight against Boko Haram and other insurgencies today. That yet we are not seeing the results. Is it not better we should challenge this money now and put it in what maybe poverty alleviation schemes? After all, it has been established there's a correlation between poverty and crime, unemployment and crime. So why allocate a lot of money for military, defense, and security? Why don't you look at the foundational issues of this, high level of securities? So allow civilian for this, having this budget oversight for this particular budget is one of the reasons why there should be civilian control over the military, because it will allow these civilians to assess the overall need of society and then make informed decisions, on resources allocation, balancing the military, what they need at the moment, the security, and possibly put those things in issues of healthcare, education, poverty, like I've said earlier. So these are among several reasons again that we have the country of the world advocating, for civilian control of the military. Are we together?
Yes, sir, we are together.
All right. Any question?
Sir, please. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Questions?
Sir, please, can you hear me?
Yes, please. I can hear you now.
Okay, sir. Sir, please, what I want to tell you is not about the class today. It's just a reminder that some of us, we had a missing result in Nigerian Heritage 100 level, and we wrote it this semester. So in case you see such a thing, so that we not have, at the end of the having NA in our result. That's what I want to tell you, sir.
If you register it on time in the school portal and you wrote the exam, you don't have any reason to have any again.
Okay, sir.
Okay, if that will be honest, call it a day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
All right, good morning.
Well, Mona Kuku kuma go for work. The man don't finish now. Wait till I remain the wait.
Mr. Joshua, are you around?
Are we still having any other class? Hello, Emmanuel.
I believe this should be the last lecture.
Oh, okay, for the day.
Yes.
Okay. Later now. Thank you. Have a nice day.
It's 12:30. Madam Amusa, good morning, ma.
Good morning, sis.
How is work, ma?
How are you? We thank God. How is
This
your
soap,
family?
they are fine. How is yours, ma?
We bless God.
This soap 209, how do we do about it? The man has not show up even once. Oh.
Yes, medical sociology, right?
Yes.
Rep is here with us.
Is she here?
Yeah, is one of our selectives. She's here with us.
I don't think she's here. Oh. She's
She
not
is.
here.
But she may not be online, but that course is one of her selectives too.
Okay.
I will
So
try
why
to
was
find
it
out
not?
from her.
Oh,
Because the time is
most of
almost
them,
over.
even if you have their number, like so 2011, right?
Mm, mm.
We have been
Those are the
calling
two
them.
classes we have today.
We have
We've
been
not,
calling them, and he's not picking.
yeah, I've not had any of them since the online classes began.
Yes,
I've not really asked the class rep what the problem
which
is.
is bad. Secret school fees, and they are not coming online to teach us. We'll be
It's
burning
data. That is even the most challenging aspect.
out.
We've been burning data,
See, these
honestly.
people
Yeah.
should consider us too. We have ah we have
This is
something to do
terrible.
also. They should consider us.
Exactly.
This is not funny anymore.
I
Like
know
you come online.
the course rep has been trying to reach out to them. I know the last time, I think what she promised was they are going to come online this week. That she has been giving their numbers and
Okay,
she was trying. The
like
numbers has been
yesterday,
sent
we
to her.
only have to 205, which is social psychology.
Mm.
I
We
think.
also had peace and what is the name of the other course too?
Is
Peace
it
and
just
conflict.
two?
Peace
I
and
was unable to join.
conflict
I
work.
was unable to join
Oh,
that class. It was when the class was about to
yeah,
end that ah,
you joined.
like
Yeah.
the thing is
I
not
hope
funny anymore.
they posted a slide on our
Yes,
platform.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, no, you posted it, but she didn't post the GS 222, GSC two
Yeah,
two two. I mean,
that is peace and conflict resolution. She posted it.
yes,
It
no,
was
that is
just one
social
topic.
psychology. That is social psychology. She posted, I think.
Okay, I'm going to send the peace and conflict resolution. Okay.
Okay, ma.
He equally
Thank
shared
you.
the slide in the lecture. I will post it. Okay.
Oh, okay, ma. Thank you, ma.
Everybody should just be reading on their own. I just realized that this is our business. It doesn't really concern them much. So everybody should
I
endeavor to read on their own.
na so, my sister.
Yeah. It's not the
How
first time
we
we're
do?
experiencing this. It has been like this. So everybody should learn to read on their own.
But this time on is bad. At least the other time they will try and even like show up, but this time is bad.
They should show up once. If they could come and give us course outline, I don't mind. They should just
I
come
will
and
go
give
and
us
read
course
on
outline.
our own.
Hey, I know the areas to concentrate, not to read
But
everything.
you
Our head now computer.
we can't be reading on our. You can't read everything. We need to, even if the explanation is small, we need it.
Yeah, you're
Like,
right. But since they're not coming, what do we do now?
and but they
They
know
should
how to
just
increase
okay.
school fees.
It is well. God will help
It's
all
not
of us.
funny.
Okay?
It's not
It's
funny.
not at all. It's not at all. Not even
From si-
living work.
from 61 to 105.
Mm, it's
Haba
well.
one. Addition of how much? Go
It's
survive,
well.
I'm sure.
We will, sure, by God's grace.
Yes, ma.
Well done,
Thank you, ma.
okay.
Yes,
Best.
ma. Yeah, thank you, ma. Same to you.
Hello, people. Hello.
Hello, ma.
I was able to talk to course rep, okay?
Okay, ma.
Yeah, he said that the medical psychology lecturer won't be coming. So we should wait for introduction to population studies. That is a 201. Okay.
Okay. Is it coming now, or we should just go offline?
No, we have to wait. The time is almost over with 209. So we should be expecting 211 by 12.
Yes.
We just hope she will keep to
By
time.
11. By 11.
Sorry, by 11 rather. She said she has already told her that the woman said she's been online, that she was here last time, she didn't meet anyone. I just assure her now that we are over 7 here waiting, so she should come, please.
Okay, ma. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning. Good
Okay.
morning.
Good morning, sir.
How how are you?
Sir.
Have you told your people?
We were
Hello?
all here before, sir.
Okay, how are you?
Okay, sir.
I'm Dr. Abubakar Musa.
Okay, sir.
I'll be discussing or we'll be meeting on the sociology of population.
Okay, sir.
Hello?
Okay, sir.
Uh, Sociology of population is a very great course and very good to study as a sociologist. Okay? Because the way other discipline look at population is quite different from that of sociology. Okay?
Okay,
Others will look at it in different dimension. But in sociology, we look at population based on probably the personal biography. Okay, and when you talk about personal biography, you are looking at where did this person come from, where is the originality, where did he come from, oh, okay, from where and where he is now. And apart from that, you have to look at the birth, where was he born, what year, when did he start work, and when will he going to retire from work. These are these are sociology of population that we are talking about. Okay, unlike economy, they may concentrate themselves with maybe idea of knowing the population of an area, but we in sociology, despite we have to know the population, but indeed it's sometimes that has to do with personal, individually. Okay, individually in what sense? The sense that because if you want to study a group of people, okay, which in this sociology interested in studying group of people, but sometimes this population study it has to be concerned with individual, okay, his personality, where did he come from, where was he originated, what is so distinct about him, his birth certificate, where did he go to school. Okay, it's just like maybe when you enroll to this to this program newly. Hello, are you with me?
yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir.
When you enroll to this program newly, what do they ask you? Please, when you are coming after giving you admission, come with your personal file, come with your birth certificate, come with your admission letter, come with all this. These are the area that the sociology were interested in studying. A kind of maybe when you say population, because at the end of the day, it's not only the counting of number, just like what is in a census, whereby you count only the numbers. Yes, you can go ahead and count the number. It's part of population study. But in sociology, indeed, it has to be personal. It has to be personalized, or maybe personal study, whereby you know that okay, you are talking to Mala Musa. As you are talking to Mala Musa, yes, happens to come from so place. He was born so year. This is his origin certificate. This is where he school. This is where he go to primary school. This is where he go to secondary school. These are things that indeed we sociology are interested in before we can just say we want to study population. But the one that maybe like say Nigerian government want to carry on is also population, but indeed we call it sociology in population census, which indeed that one will just only consider 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is all. But in sociology, we have to know before you can say okay, you want to carry on this. You have to study the population of those people, knowing the numbers of those people, and equally know
I'll ask you a question. So as we are talking now, all other students who are online, they'll be hearing what you are saying. Okay? But in order for you not to be disturbing the class, you.